Welcome to Pixelated episode 74. I'm your host, Will Saddleberg. This week, Abner, Damien, and I focus in on ultra-thin smartphones following the rumored cancellation of next year's planned Galaxy S26 Edge. With the S25 Edge having failed to make a splash in the market, what does that mean for Samsung and the rest of the S26 series moving forward? Plus, Abner shares his thoughts on the iPhone Air after a month's worth of use. Heads up, this episode was recorded prior to recent rumors that the Galaxy S26 Pro might just be called the Galaxy S26 after all.
So it looks like the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge has been a little bit of a failure, guys. I think maybe we're not ready for thin phones. I don't know. I'm kind of the opinion that we want thick phones, big batteries, don't care about thinness, but maybe the market's kind of evened itself out and decided for us. I don't know what you guys think about it.
So what exactly has Samsung cancelled here, or rumored to cancel?
Well, it looks like the S25 Edge, right, Will?
Yeah, S26 Edge, it sounds like. So
right,
the news out this morning as we're recording, yesterday as this episode comes out, is it's reporting out of Korea. And it basically sounds like Samsung is canceling the Galaxy S26 Edge launch that's coming early next year in lieu of just doing an S26 Plus, which all of the reporting for the past several months has been no S26 Plus. They're dropping the Plus lineup to do the Edge. They're renaming the base model to Pro. They're reconfiguring their lineup, and it seems like the S25 Edge, which we've known for a while to be a sales failure, has basically, completely torn up Samsung's roadmap for next year because they're so concerned that replacing what I assume is a pretty decent seller, although I wouldn't be surprised if it was, I don't remember what the S25 sales are, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Plus is the least selling of the three, just because it's that middle child. But they're skittish about the idea of replacing what is a successful product lineup with one that is not shown to be successful. And so, yeah, we might be looking at a one and done with the S25 Edge at this point.
And I think Motorola this week, they had what was the latest on Motorola's device here?
Yeah, the Moto 70 Edge, is it, I believe?
Edge 70. In China, it's the X70 Air.
Right.
So it got a Chinese announcement this week.
So like in typical fashion, we have one brand potentially pulling out and then another one deciding that we're going to get into this space. Like, I mean, I'm in the complete opposite to the kind of person who wants a thin phone. I want I want a phone that's thick, plenty of battery. I don't care about thinness that much. I think we've reached a point now where maybe the only argument I have is a phone that is thin that then I put a case on and it's thinner. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. I just don't know who this phone was for. We've talked about it on the pod before. The S25 Edge always felt like that, kind of trying to beat Apple to the punch. Right. And whether or not it's a bad product or not, I haven't used it, and I don't know anyone who has used it widely. Like, did they preempt something and preempt a market that doesn't exist yet? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it needed Apple to come into the marketplace for everyone to understand that maybe thin phones are something that are viable. I'm not really sure. I know that we'll get into it in a little bit. I know you have the iPhone Air, Abner, and we'll talk about that because I'm kind of really interested to that experience. But like, it almost seems to be that everybody seems to want a thicker phone with more battery. So why not cater for that? I feel like that would be a better way of doing it.
The battery is absolutely people's overarching concern, demand, requirement in modern smartphones. Obviously, makes sense why, but and I do think that is the right thing to optimize for, that everyone should have as much battery as possible. But at the same time, my thinking was that the only thing that could not beat that overarching desire is something as thin, as premium, as something like the iPhone Air or what the Edge tried to do. Well, that and foldable screens, I guess, is a trade-off that people might be willing to make. But as we've said before on this podcast, the Edge the S25 Edge did not seem like a I don't know, a spirited a device that had a purpose outside of beating the iPhone Air to market. And I think we're seeing what happens if the upcoming one is canceled. So I was going to get an Edge, but I ended up not. But I was very excited that Samsung was going to put it into its main lineup over the Plus with the S26. I'm sure the Plus is that big phone that gets sold on carriers in terms of what people that just want a phone that has a big screen. I'm sure that's how it was pushed. And to me, it was exciting that Samsung was willing to do a second generation of the Edge, that they were willing to make it a mainstream idea, a mainstream option. So I am disappointed that that's not happening. In terms of having my iPhone Air, so I upgraded from the 13 mini, 4-year gap. I love it. It's thin. It feels futuristic, which is, I do admit, that is something that I look forward to in all technology I use. Just it feeling futuristic, especially with the past 2 generations of Pixels feeling like the iPhone, like every other phone. The Air was a breath of fresh air, to be punny. It just feels, that thinness is something, it just feels like you're holding a sliver of glass. That's how I best describe it. It just feels like it's nothing that you're familiar with. In the modern era, there was the Moto Z, which was thinner, and I enjoyed that phone thoroughly. But I don't know, having a thin phone, it just feels futuristic, and I do fully admit that I'm in the minority in terms of wanting something futuristic. But we have to see what the iPhone Air sales are. But I think there are people that might appreciate, whoa, this feels different from that I've been using for the past few years.
Do you think as well, though, the issue is that Samsung has a more vibrant, I use the word vibrant, it is in a lot of ways, they have different form factors that Apple doesn't have, and Apple can't get into them just yet. I do wonder if the existence of the Flip, the existence of the Fold, I think they've done a concept for the Trifold, right? This felt like maybe a bridge too far in terms of a wider array of devices they have available to them, because they can make those gains in every area that maybe Apple can't, because obviously Samsung is so entrenched within display manufacture. This felt like they're flexing their muscles a little bit, but not enough, like maybe the Z Fold, Z Fold 7 does. And the Z Flip does. Like, those exist for a reason. There is a form factor benefit to having those the way that they are. And the Fold 7 is fantastic. Like, in terms of thinness as well, when you have it fully open, it is thinner than the Galaxy S25 Edge. And it's in a lot of ways, it is a kind of a technical marvel in that respect. So this doesn't feel like in the same category of that. I don't know. I'm kind of trying to get behind the theory and the mindset of Samsung putting this phone out there, and it does, like you say, Abner, it comes back to the idea that it only feels like a concept to push Apple, or to say to Apple, yeah, we're on your heels a little bit. I don't know. Am I wrong for thinking that, or do you think that's kind of maybe some of the thought process that they had in Korea before it was originally launched?
I'm in the same boat as you, Damien. I think, and I think Apple's actually has similar motivation. I think the S25 Edge was kind of, 50%, or maybe more than 50, but at least 50% focused on beating Apple to the punch, beating Apple to market, and the other 50% or other share of it was, well, we've been working on this technology for our foldable lineup, and we have the ability to make this ultra thin chassis and push it out to consumers, so we might as well make an alternate device for somebody who wants this status symbol. I think the problem comes in when you don't do enough to differentiate from the rest of the product lineup, right? Like, I think if you look at Apple, and I think the iPhone Air, in a lot of ways, as we've talked about, is very much like, we're working on this technology for a foldable. Like, here is, kind of what we're working on. But because we're not ready to ship a foldable, we can ship this ultra thin status symbol phone. I think the difference is if you look at how Samsung and Apple both approached the release of this device, right? So even setting aside the idea that Apple is, more of a status symbol company in general, I think had Samsung launched the S25 Edge with the rest of the S25 lineup, or instead of the Plus model, right, and made it feel a little bit more part of the lineup, which they were about to, like, they were going to do in January or February, like early next year.
Felt
they
like
were
that, right? Yeah,
right. And so I think if they had made this feel like a proper launch instead of 4 months later, after a bunch of, rumored delays and slowdowns and kind of this very like unceremonious May launch that felt sandwiched between all these developer conferences and Samsung's own Unpacked event in July. Like it felt very snuffed out by the competition in a way that Apple obviously didn't have when they launched the iPhone Air alongside the iPhone 17 series. And I think that's another thing, is that Apple was able, by dropping the number, was able to kind of be like, this is its own thing. This is a status symbol item. Buy it if you want this like more premium experience, this alternate iPhone experience, versus Samsung being like, well, it's part of the S25 series. It's not really, as good as any of them. It has more shortcomings than any of them, and it's expensive and it's premium. And we're launching it 4 months late. So this like hype cycle around a new lineup of phones has already come and gone. And I think the entire thing, and then they just didn't have a story to tell. And I do think Apple had a story to tell with the iPhone Air, right? Like they at least sold it in a way that was like, we've created this super thin, ultra thin premium phone that's going to change how you feel about your phone. You're going to carry your device differently. And I never got, I don't even know what Samsung was technically trying to accomplish here beyond beating Apple to the punch and just having this technology ready. And as you said, the Fold 7 essentially used the same, idea of an ultra thin phone, much like to a much better degree, a much more powerful degree 2 months later. And they're both expensive devices. And if you're doing like a monthly plan or you're trading phones in, the prices start to look a little more similar. And so it became one of those things where it was like, the market for this phone was just going to wait for a foldable or buy a standard S25.
It definitely feels like that, right? It feels like they ran out of runway for it. Like the personal investments kind of not there. But like, if we dial into the numbers, according to this report, we have what? They sold 1.31 million units as of August. Let's be completely honest. If Google was getting those kind of numbers in that time frame, we would be shouting about it. It's amazing. That's such good sales for a Pixel device. Like, I think, when you compare it to say the S25 Ultra, if I can say it, that sold 12 million units in the same period of time. Like, to me, this doesn't seem like a complete and utter failure, but obviously from Samsung's optics, it really is. Like, this is the levels that the kind of the competition and the levels that they are at, whereas other brands would be killing for those kind of sales figures in that time frame. So for us to say, and obviously it feels like a failure, I think they can kind of write this off, because if we go look at Apple have done similar things before, right? They've done the Mini, they've done the SE to a lesser extent, which is, I'm guessing, has been pretty successful. Or have they quit that lineup? I don't even know. Like, Apple is no secret to introducing devices that don't catch on. And neither is Samsung. But I think Samsung team tends to do it at a faster rate. And this feels just like one of those. I'm gonna coin it. I think it's a bit of a successful failure on their part. They've tried it. They've proven that maybe for our lineup this doesn't work. Sure. And I think if they're gonna make thinner phones, they can do it on their devices anyway, right? They've proven that we can make a thin phone and it has high-end internals in it. And we could probably see the S26 Ultra marginally thinner, maybe with a silicon carbon battery in it, and they can say, hey, we learned something from the S25 Edge. We've made our flagship phones thinner. I don't know.
As much as I want there to be ultra thin phones in the truest sense, I do think that Samsung should have committed whatever effort to improving the flip, to making the flip thinner, a year earlier, maybe, etc. That's, to me, that seems to have been a differentiator and a better where to commit engineering resources and all that. A successful failure is, I think that's a good way to put it for the S25 Edge for Samsung. Again, I do wish that they would continue iterating and seeing what give it a full marketing launch, give it the usual when people are in stores deciding whether they want the S20, which S26 they want. They should have given the Edge a fair shake, and it doesn't seem like we'll get there.
I don't even remember an Edge ad. I remember other S25 ads. I don't remember one for the Edge.
Yeah,
Do you think there was just lack of confidence in it? Do you think there was a lack of confidence that it's gonna set the market alight? Do you think the way that they did it with the delayed launch, because it was it unveiled alongside the S25 series and then it was released just after MWC?
Very brief tease at the very end of the show. I remember sitting there in California watching it, and it was, they wrapped up, and then there was like a 30-second coming soon, and they had devices on display, but you couldn't touch them. They were just hanging.
Yeah, that's never a good sign, is it? That is never ever a good sign.
It never looked premium. The S25 Edge never looked like a premium device. It just looked, the camera, the way they did the camera bump, it screamed that we had to do this. It had no intentionality. It didn't seem like it had any intentionality to it. And I think, speaking back to the Air, that does look like a premium device from afar. Polished edges, used deftly. It just looks like a premium device. And then once you get it in store, which Apple obviously has that retail advantage of letting people try it on scale instead of just there just being one device in a Best Buy. There's a whole mess of them everywhere. I guess the other thing with the iPhone Air that I found surprising is, as a person that usually prefers smaller screens, going to this 6.5, I love it. It made me tolerate, or not even feel like I'm using a gigantic large phone that I have to pocket and work with. So that has been another surprise that, maybe I can live with a big screen as long as the dimensions of it don't feel like it. I don't know. It just feels futuristic, and I'm enjoying it greatly.
I wonder if you mentioned briefly there as well, though, that the design is futuristic. I do wonder as well that this is just tying it back a little bit to the S25 Edge. I do wonder if they've hindered themselves by tying it into the S25 lineup. So it has it basically, the iPhone Air is its own separate line now, right? It has iPhone flavorings. It's an adjacent product, whereas the S25 Edge is very much 1 foot, basically 2 feet actually, in the S25 lineup. So by differentiating the device and making it completely different, it causes problems. And they already have their own FE series as well. So there's a lot of confusion about, which is the S25 device for me? Yeah. At least with Apple's device, they've said, and they've gone whole hog on it, and they've been like, okay, this is the Air. It has one camera. We've made it super thin. It looks slightly similar to devices you may have seen from us before, but it's still its own thing.
Right.
And we've engineered it to be its own thing. I just felt like with this, like we've alluded to several times already, is that there is no differentiation factor. It looks like an FE. It looks like the base model Galaxy S25, and Apple doesn't have to have that problem. They can be like, hey, this is not related to the iPhone 17. Yeah. This is completely different. And if you want something completely different, come to us. And going back to the retail store thing, I think that is a fantastic way to differentiate your products. If you just have one, like you say, one floating device in Best Buy, I don't know what the equivalent here is in the UK, maybe Currys or PC World. You are not going to get one person going out of their way to do that. Whereas if you go into the Apple store, which a lot of people do, it's very much like a place people go and kind of engage with their product lineups. You go straight in and you see this wafer thin device, not at the back of a store, behind all the TVs, behind all the fridges, behind all the washing machines, and you're going out of your way to look for a device, and this thing stares you in the face. I just think that we're talking about levels here, and I think product confidence is probably the biggest biggest thing that's striking me as we're talking this out.
Yeah.
The thing with the iPhone Air, it's very much a continuation of what Apple did with the iPad Pro in terms of making thinner and thinner devices. I think like 5.3 and 5.1 to the iPhone Air's 5.5 maybe. Have you, either of you, have the iPad Pro or handled the iPad Pro?
I've handled it, and it is wafer thin. It's way
crazy. It makes my 329 iPad feel like it's like a budget device from 2018.
Yeah, and last year at the Series 10, they shrunk the watch, and that was the Apple Watch, and that was also very noticeable. So it does seem like there's a design mandate from Apple to make everything thinner. And I don't know, I remember you seeing the watch wheel that Series 10 last year and remarking that, it does look thinner. And again, with the iPad Pro, it feels like you're holding a piece of glass in your hand. To me, it evokes like the first time I use a tablet and like browse like a desktop website. I think we were talking about the touchpad earlier offline, but that was like my first tablet. It was my first affordable tablet.
Yeah.
And that felt pretty. It felt like you were holding the internet in your hand in a way. It was so much more visceral, and iPhone Air evokes that again. So I guess the takeaway for the Android landscape is if Samsung is out, I'm curious. Again, we'll see what Motorola does and whether they find any more success. But there's probably some writing on the wall there in terms of now that Samsung has maybe most likely exited the market. Again, as we were alluding to, Pixel is on a much different scale, but I would have loved to see a ultra-thin Pixel. But given the fact that Google has never, it does not seem like they're going ahead on a flip phone. It doesn't seem like something even more niche as an ultra-thin phone. I highly doubt Google pursues that.
And the Pixel 10 series in general is pretty bulky by modern standards anyway. It's not like overly thick, but especially once you combine the camera bump, you're above 12 millimeters. I think even without it though, it's like roughly 9, right? Maybe a little sub 9. I would really like to see companies like Samsung and Google and anybody kind of just take what they've learned from these experiments, which was sort of, maybe the initial inspiration anyway, and take those advancements and bring them to the S20, it's too late for the S26 Ultra, but the S27 Ultra or the Pixel 11, like devices like this. And I'm not saying go ultra thin, but if we can start getting it to the point where like every flagship phone is like 7.5, 7.3, 7 millimeters, like, that's middle ground where they've taken these advancements they've learned and they have slimmed the device down and therefore the device weighs less, but you're not getting hit with all of the compromises that come with the S25 Edge or the iPhone Air regarding, battery life or even durability. I would really like to see that. I'm not against slimmer, lighter devices because I agree with you, Abner. Like, I think they do sort of accomplish similar objectives compared to the iPhone, like the iPhone 13 mini or like smaller devices, right? Like just making the device thinner and lighter in your pocket kind of, even with a larger screen, kind of accomplishes, a similar goal. And I'm not against that. I think it's just that the price and the compromise in battery, like these things are like harder to stomach for regular users.
Yeah, I do think you need that thin phones. I view them as an experiment, and we'll see how much of a market success is after that. And I guess they stop being experiments. But I am all for thinner phones. I do feel like the Pixel 9 could have been a hair thinner, and I would have enjoyed the hand feel much more. So I do. It would be great if everything got a little bit thinner. Without not at the expense of battery life, but at the same time, it is different than a dedicated ultra thin phone. I do. It is. There is a difference there in terms of it. hitting 5, whatever range, that just feels different, and in a way that you do have to feel it in your hand. And yeah, I guess it comes back to the idea of battery life being this. That is a thing to prioritize for everybody.
Yeah.
It's people just don't want. People's charging anxiety is not insignificant. People will,
and especially Samsung doesn't
always be
emphasize charging speeds. You know, like it doesn't, this isn't like a OnePlus device where it's like, well, sure, the battery life's not great, but plug it in for 20 minutes and you are good to go.
It's full.
Yeah. I have a theory for you guys, actually. One more cardinal sin I think Samsung committed and that doomed the S25 Edge. And it's Qi 2. Because if you go look at reviews, if you compare reviews of the S25 Edge and the iPhone Air, neither of them are getting, props for their battery life, right? Like I do think the iPhone Air probably is slightly, no pun intended, slightly edges out the edge, but Apple's big, Samsung made this announcement of the Edge and was like all day battery life, and reviewers got their hands on it and said, not my all day, not for me. Maybe if you're a really light user, but even moderate users are going to hit a wall in the evening. Apple got up and said all day battery life, and then, and also we have this magnetic charging pack that we have built specifically for this phone that you can carry around and just makes the phone like thicker, obviously, but it's made for this device, which is going to cause problems later on when you suddenly have a battery pack that doesn't work with your new phone, maybe in 3 or 4 years, but for now is a good solution. And we gave Samsung, or at least I gave Samsung a lot of grief this year for not arriving with proper Qi 2 support. They did this Qi 2 Ready thing where they sell not very good first party cases that do have magnets. But I think if they had launched, the S25 series and specifically the Edge with proper Qi 2 MagSafe like technology, in a battery pack to go with it, I do think at the very least the battery complaints are alleviated a little bit. And you can see this in the iPhone Air reviews. Like people often are like, but I had this battery pack and it was totally fine.
Do you think as well that I'm asking you, but I'm also going to give an anecdote here of what I see. The amount of people that you see out and about in the world, and weirdly in the UK, I see it in train stations and places like that. You see people running around with the power brick and the cable with the phone in their hand.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if that is kind of ingrained within people's life cycle now with smartphones, the way that they are and all that kind of jazz. I wonder if people don't necessarily have charge anxiety in the same way that they used to, because I just chuck it in the wall when I'm at a location.
Sure.
And charge bricks are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's really strange that we've gone from this phase of having, I guess, the form factor has kind of been settled on, and now we've hit this plateau of really innovation generally in smartphone space. So we're going for the thinness, but we haven't had that battery innovation yet. So we're kind of trying to play catch up. Thinness is going to play catch up. The batteries are going to be terrible. Well, not terrible. They're just not great. Because obviously we have the efficiency of the chips, but we don't necessarily have the batteries that can take advantage. It's a whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. I do wonder if now in the next few years we'll start to see companies, silicon carbon seems to be a bit of a breakthrough, because we can just get more capacity in a smaller space. I do wonder if that is the kind of the silver bullet to this thinness argument and the battery life. But again, I wonder how the average person on the street is going to, do they care about this? Do they want the shiny thing that's thin, or do they just really want a brick? Because I'm one of the guys who used to have, do you remember those Belkin cases? You'd have a Belkin case which had a power bank attached to it.
Absolutely.
See, I would run around with one of those all day. So I'm not the kind of, and power banks, the power bank market must be rubbing their hands together. I think Anker must be out there thinking, we're going to make millions off the back of the iPhone Air.
Qi 2 is going to rush in a new era for power banks. It already is.
I really think that people like power banks, but I think they like them in specific situations. I think people will accept it when they're traveling, that the mess of wires and the added bulk in their purse or backpack or pocket. I think once you're talking about day-to-day use and you're talking about adding a power bank to your day-to-day use, it's got to be magnetic. It's got to be as and firsthand, anecdotally, my fiance, like I've never seen her take to a power bank like the MagSafe power bank she has now, where she just constantly, in the evening, if her phone is running low on energy, will pop that on in a way that I've never seen her use other power banks. And trust me, this house is filled with power banks. So like it's interesting. I think people really take to the convenience of magnetic accessories, and that's kind of why I think, I'm not saying the S25 Edge is a sales success with G2, but I think it's a better story. I think it's an easier sell to consumers.
But then how does Samsung hide the fact that their flagship device, the S25 Ultra, which I still think is the best? I mean, it's hard to argue how good this phone is, considering it made negligible gains in almost every single area, but the sum of its parts make it fantastic. It's like 8, 9 out of 10 in every department. Like, how do they justify this phone not having Qi 2 and then the S25 Edge, which is a slightly cheaper version of this with lesser specifications, not having it?
They all should have had it, is my answer. they all
I agree with you. But then they get themselves into a mess of problems where it's like, and then now they're looking and saying, well, we have this incredible foldable device, our best foldable ever, and that doesn't have it. So I think the timing was just bad. It was just a bad timing thing. If they just release this as an S26 Edge, give it a little bit longer in the oven, like, it wouldn't have taken much to put the magnets on the back of the device, right?
Yeah,
like
I agree.
the coil, it's the last thing you put on the device when you manufacture these. Recall it, give it a few more months in the oven.
But they had to beat Apple. They thought they had to beat Apple.
It just comes back to that, right? It just comes back
problem.
to that. Yeah. Well, Let's get into a little bit of what makes the Air so much different than Abner. Those of us, we've seen the S25 Edge. Where do you think the Air stands on its own then, compared to, say, a regular phone in this space? Because I'm guessing there's a lot of us who are Android people who don't necessarily care all that much about iOS, but it's nice to learn from the other side and kind of work out what they've done well, what they've done badly, all that kind of jazz. Let's just get into some of the core things you think set this apart from the Pixel 10, for instance.
It's just a hand feel. It's something, once you live with it, it just the weight still gets me every time. It's been a few weeks, but the lightness, it makes the Pixel 10 feel thick. And I objectively know it's like the Pixel 10 is absolutely average in that regard. It is an average sized phone, an average weighted phone. You're using the 10 Pro, right? The regular 10 Pro, the small one. Right. Well, I mean, the 10 Pro and the 10 is just, and compared to they're identical. It's really, that's another tangent, but these are the same feeling phones. It is wildly remarkable. And I don't know if that can continue in the same way, but we'll get back to that. No, to what you're asking, it's the weight, it's it's a sliver. It's hard to describe. It's holding glass. It just feels like there's nothing else. That you're not holding nothing else. In terms of who the Air is for, absolutely first adopters. But I do think that there is a non-insignificant portion of people that buy just either a regular phone that'd be perfectly happy with the Air. Maybe people that aren't on their phones as much, I think that'd be perfectly fine with the battery life would get them through a day. It'll obviously be less than if they got a 17, but I think it gets them through the day just fine. The Air versus the foldable, the flip style foldables is also an interesting thing to look at. Where are we on flip phones? Do we think
I don't know. I was about to ask you the same question. I feel like they must be. Like, Samsung is selling millions of these every year, and so technically they are a success, and everyone seems to have copied them. I feel like with the Flip, the Z Flip, Z Flip, it's a very specific kind of person that would use one. And weirdly, I see them out in the wild quite regularly, which is fascinating to me. I just think that why would you benefit from this? But the old school flip style, I think, is good for people who don't know how to put the phone down when they call. They can just slap it shut and it's done. That I love. I feel like it's a halfway house of benefits of a modern smartphone, and that tiny outer screen as well really doesn't do much for me. I just feel like you're kind of selling yourself short by getting a flip personally over a regular fold. Like,
it's
you know what I mean?
like it's like a square, but a square is such a weird thing to hold in the grand scheme. It's bulky. It looks weird in your pockets. It's
the bulk is the thing for me. Yeah.
Which has got
to me, it's a mum phone.
better.
It's a parent's phone, right?
Yeah,
your mum or your dad would, maybe not your dad, but your mum would use one of these because it's like, close it, throw it in a bag, throw it in like a handbag or a clutch bag.
Yeah,
it's terrible for pockets.
That's how I see it.
Terrible for pockets.
That's it. It's for people who don't have pockets. Yeah.
But at the same time, it also feels so much more weighty since it feels so much more dense. So that even if you like thinking you have like a short pocket, a smaller pocket, it still just feels dense and weighty that it's ideally for a bag. Messenger bags, purses, whatever. It's, I don't know. Okay, between an ultra-thin phone and a flip, between an ultra-thin phone and a flip-style foldable, what do you think most people should get?
I think it's a fantastic question.
If it's between those two, I mean, it's just frustrating because I feel like flip phone design, at least in the US, right, where there's really only two players, has not kept up with the advancements we've seen on like book style foldables, like larger style foldables, where, you know, this year's Flip 7, I feel like was really the first time that a device got noticeably slimmer over its predecessor. Like the Razors, you know, we're on Gen 3 of the modern Razor, you know, after reviving it in 2023. And not, you know, there were a couple before that, but I'm saying that I feel like that was the first really successful flip phone from Razer or from Motorola. And you know, they're still like 13 millimeters, right? And they're not light. Like you know, the Flip 7 is 20, 25, 30 grams heavier than the Edge. So you're not really, and again, that's the slimmest flip phone you can buy in the US right now. I really think that like the answer is flip phones, but not today's flip phones. It's like 2 or 3 years from now when the design trends that we've seen on book style foldables can catch up on flip style devices, and you start looking at, you know, 10 millimeters when closed, sub 10 millimeters when closed, I think is really when that starts to feel like, well, yeah, it's lighter and thinner and it takes up so little space in my pocket. But you know, today it's tricky where I still would probably recommend a flip phone if somebody's concerned about size or whatever, but with a lot more caveats.
I don't know. I feel like I'm the opposite. I would personally, I would rather use the S25 Edge than the Z Flip 7 or Z Flip 7. Like genuinely, I would prefer the S25
Samsung
Edge.
software experience on the Flip is rough too. It's a problem. Like, I have mostly used Motorola's, so in my head I'm like, yeah, you have all the power of the Motorola Flip or cover screen experience, which is much more built out than Samsung's.
I just think the kind of person who's going to use a flip phone would probably be better served regardless with a slab. I just think, I think like I say, it feels like a halfway product because you get barely any of the benefits of a regular foldable because you don't get that usable outer screen. Yeah. You have that tiny little screen on the outside, and this is my inherent bias for seeing people out using this. It tends to be people of a certain vintage who are using these flip phones. They probably managed to get them on a decent deal, and then they have a tiny screen that they can't necessarily use accurately, so they constantly have to open the phone anyway. I just think at that point in time, get a decent case.
Yeah.
Get a decent phone, get a decent case. So I am probably going to be team thin rather than team flip.
That's
genuinely think I'm team thin. And obviously the more I hear about the iPhone Air, obviously I picked up the 17 Pro Max to kind of understand what's going on. I kind of wish I'd have gone for the Air now,
Abner's
that
like
feels like a different
selling
thing.
me on it. I have a buy iPhone Air tab open, and I'm like, Abner, like I don't have $1,000 to spare for this, but you're kind of convincing me.
But this is where we may be in the position where we have seen so many devices. Yeah. We've seen so much of the space that we're almost, I'm not to say jaded, but the new thing is the interesting thing. Yeah. But the average person is just going to go, and I hate the term average person, but I don't know, Janine from Massachusetts, she's going to go and pick up an iPhone 17, the base model. She doesn't care. Can I take a good photo? Is the battery going to last all day? That's it. I don't care. They don't care. Or the base Pixel 10, like overlooking the flaws that we're going to pick out. Like we're going to go through the weeds and really go for it. So maybe the market has kind of spoken that thin phones they're Apple's game now, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm interested to see what you guys think if I'm right or wrong there.
Yeah, okay, let's say if the iPhone Air ends up being a market success, Samsung has to try again, won't it? Like it's going to be awkward when they re-enter that space.
Who does it first, though? Who does it first? Does Samsung go back in, or do you think somebody else will do it? Because Google are not going to do it.
No, I don't think Google's going to do it.
Moto?
Samsung would have to completely rethink. Because the other thing, and I noticed this because I have this tab open, but I completely forgot that Apple undercut the Edge by $100. The iPhone Air is $1,000.
Oh.
The S25 Edge is $1,100, right? So, and I don't think many people are shopping between the two, but I do think that price matters to the consumer, where even if you're doing monthly payments, you see the difference between a 3-figure and a 4-figure number. And, Samsung really kind of wrote themselves into a corner on this one because they couldn't price it at $1,000 because of the Plus. So there's like, again, this kind of comes back to like, this should have launched alongside the rest of the S25 series, which they were about to do, but then they're not going to anymore. So I don't know. Like I think Samsung, if they're going to pull out of this market, and I do think there's a chance, I want to say, that all of this fizzles out and the S26 Edge launches as intended and whatever. But like, I really think the only way for Samsung to do this is to, one, really think about what this phone needs to be in a way that I think Apple did. And I'm not sure Samsung really sat down and put the entire thought through. And two, it needs to launch as like its own. So if they re-enter this market, it needs to be it's here, it's right now, it's at a fair price. Here you go. That's what I think.
Yeah, I guess one more iPhone Air thing is, Apple introduced a crossbody strap. I am told it is a popular trend.
I would never do. I mean, obviously, I live in the UK, but in London, phone snatching is out of control, so I would not even risk it. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know how, like, to me, even though I get lots of devices to test and stuff like that, to me, a phone is still a tool. I don't see it as like a lifestyle thing. So I wouldn't advertise the fact that I have X phone or Y phone with a body, like a crossbody strap. I'd rather put it in because I carry I've started carrying a little kind of clutch bag, like it's a like a little Bellroy thing. And I put my phones in there if I'm going to do that. Like a little side bag kind of thing. Like I would rather do that than and carry multiple things than have potentially that bag then my phone. Do you know what I mean? Like,
exactly the same thinking. If I'm putting the crossbody strap for the iPhone or any other phone is just for that phone, there are no additional pockets to put anything else like AirPods or Pixel Buds or whatever. It's interesting. But do you see people using crossbody straps in the world? I have definitely noticed the pickup.
I don't know. I've seen people using it as a camera strap, which I think is fantastic. I think if you can use it for multiple purposes, but I don't know. I get the I don't want to talk on behalf of people who would do it, but I feel like there's some cool accessories that Apple seems to tie. Apple seems to do this a little better than anybody else. They kind of get into the zeitgeist and they can create these new accessory lineups that nobody else seems to be able to do. And maybe Samsung wouldn't be able to do this anyway.
Yeah,
because the product was not marketed at the right people. It was just, hey, here's a thin phone. Whereas the Air does feel like a lifestyle accessory, and that if you choose it, you are choosing to have something that is a trinket as opposed to the be all end all. And maybe the design choice of the iPhone 17 Pro has helped push people towards the Air, i.e., it's a rugged, the most rugged looking iPhone. It's the most Android of all iPhones, to be quite honest with you. I mean, it's filled with bugs. So there's all these little things that are at play here that maybe we're overlooking. I don't know.
Yeah, let's touch on the 17 Pro, actually. You've been using it. How have you been thinking about the design and all that?
What do you want to know? Do you want to know about the experience? Because the experience has been horrendous. I've never experienced a more bug-ridden version of iOS in my life. I went through a phase. I think my first iPhone was original. Then I went to the 3G when that came available because 3G was rolling out here in the UK. So I have had experience of iPhones in the past. It was only when the Nexus 4 came out that I switched to Android. So it's quite a while. And then I kind of had one every few years. I was like, oh, let's see what's going on iOS. But compared to last year, which felt like it's the iPhone 14, but with, the iPhone 15, but with maybe slightly smaller bezels and a slightly different color. This feels like, I mean, Liquid Glass is a mess, to be honest with you. But the bugs that I'm getting are out of control. It's horrendous. It's literally like using a TouchWiz era Samsung at times. Just UI elements that don't seem finished, random pop-ins. But the hardware's nice, so I don't know.
Yeah.
The hardware's good. The software's terrible, but the hardware's good.
Hardware is that it seems so much more utilitarian than past ones, and it's been interesting how you would I think the critique unfairly or fairly lobbed against Apple is that they are a form over function company. And to me, the 17 Pro breaks that. It's so much more utilitarian than anything that came before. And it's interesting how some people are criticizing them for it being so un-Apple-like, whatever. It is a shift in the design priorities or whatever. But anyways, how they're arranging the camera, I think the best reason I've seen for why they don't want to put it in the Pixel style in a row is something like lens switching. They don't want it to be too drastic when you switch between lenses. That makes sense. So I guess there's that. That thick rectangle, that elevated plateau on the back. And we've seen what Xiaomi was it that put the screen on it?
Yeah.
That's interesting. That is.
I do. It does feel like, I say, utilitarian is the best way you've described it. It's very strange to see an iPhone that looks like this. It's like a culture shock because, as I say, I'm not going to put words in the mouths of any of the engineers at Cupertino, but there is definitely there is 100% something that has gone on there, and they've looked at what's going on this side of the fence, the open meadow, as it were, rather than the walled garden. They've had a peek over the wall, and they've seen devices doing different things, and I don't think that's probably happened before. Yeah. I would love to know how much. I mean, we'll never know, but how much influence the camera bar of the Pixel has kind of been I guess drawn upon to an extent. I think it's the camera bar really stands out on the Pixel, and I think that's one of the good things that Google needs to keep leaning into. The camera bar, it does look. I've heard people say iconic. I wouldn't go that far just yet.
I think it's iconic. I think it's iconic among tech users, and I think it stands out in a way that even non-enthusiasts, even if they don't know it's a Pixel, they know it's not an iPhone, which I don't think is true of every other phone. Even Samsung is so anonymous in its design that I think people, maybe they know it's not an iPhone, but they don't really pay attention. I think at least the Pixel's camera bar grabs your attention.
Yeah, so that the design, it annoys the hell out of me that it's not that the camera lens on all these devices, they're not flat like the Pixel. That is genuinely annoying. Camera control. We all have iPhones with camera control. How have we been using that? I honestly thought...
I don't.
Oh, you don't?
I don't no, I wouldn't. That button is useless.
I use it as a shortcut to the camera.
Yeah, too.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
But if I'm taking a
switch-
photo, I'm touching that shutter button. I'm not touching the camera control.
No, I don't. I go straight into the screen. Yeah, it's the biggest waste of time I think I've ever seen in tech. It's one of the worst things I think Apple's ever introduced to a product. Yeah.
The double press, I set mine to whenever you double press it, it opens the camera even when it's off. That has been the primary way I launch it. So it's exactly the Pixel power button. Again, that's somewhat because how on the Pixel, the power button, which I still think is too narrow, is what's double pressing. Yeah, the camera is double pressing, long press is Siri, versus a double press on the iPhone launching Wallet, though the Pixel has added that option too. So, but yeah, it's camera control. I don't know. I don't zoom. I don't really zoom with it. But again, I only have one lens. So yeah, camera control.
I think it's a strange one because it's like, and I do think Apple does this better than any other companies. They'll kind of, like you say, form over function a little bit. They will persevere with something that doesn't seem to be a success. Yeah. They just see how far they can go down the road with it, and eventually it becomes something either useful or they just say, "Hey, we're going to get rid of it." 3D Touch, the Touch ID, which I think was a sensible decision in the long term. I don't think camera control will stay around indefinitely. I think that they probably will make it like I don't know. I don't really know actually in hindsight, because this feels very much like when I'm holding this phone right now, which sadly the listener out there can't see, the iPhone 17 Pro Max feels like it is gearing up to be the central rig of a camera system. They're leaning into cinematography. They're leaning into videography in ways that nobody else is really trying to do. And this feels like, we'll keep the camera controls for the, in air quotes, pro videographers out there. But at the same time, I just can see them cutting it short, cutting the losses, because you cannot mimic physical camera controls with capacitive buttons in the same way that you need that tactile feedback. Apple would be better off partnering with a company and making a cage that has all of those controls where you plug it in via USB-C, you get access to shutter controls, like aperture, all that kind of stuff. Like that would be a better usage of their time and effort.
I think
they would. I think they can do that.
They've done super expensive niche accessories for the Mac line. I don't see a reason they don't do it. And Damien, I agree with you. I've been watching a lot of American football, and the iPhone ad I've seen the most is the one they showed at the end of their event, or the end of the iPhone section of their event, which is 30 seconds of like people making movies with with the iPhone. That is the ad I have seen the most, and I think it really stands out.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because like the vast majority of people will never use it that way.
No, absolutely not. And yet that's how they're selling the Pro. It's really interesting.
I do wonder what happens, like, because obviously Google, tying it back into Google and Pixel a little bit, they had the what are the group or boy group called? Whoever the band is that they had who made their brief music video with the Pixel.
Jonas Brothers.
Jonas Brothers, yeah. I do wonder how much longer Google will sit on the sidelines with regards to their video efforts. I think they need a chip. They need the chip to process this stuff. And we'll get a log profile, I'm sure. We'll get in there with the stills. The stills is still right up there.
It needs to be on device. Their cloud thing is really just not taking off. People, they want it immediately. We need to get Google needs to get that into their heads. I
agree.
It's a
huge miss.
That or the cloud the benefits aren't obvious enough. I think that's what people are finding or saying. So
the only thing I could think is that you could do a reverse video boost, i.e., this sounds ridiculous. You shoot the video, it goes off to the cloud, it then becomes its own really high-end log profile, flat profile, and you can add effects after the fact.
Honestly,
I don't know. That's
just
me spitballing and talking rubbish, but
no, it feels like such a bandage solution, like a Band-Aid solution of like that was okay for a generation, but like we're now on 2 generations of it, and it was really Video Boost was really announced with the Pixel 8, it just didn't ship then. So like it's just like, guys, you've known this is a problem with your chips for several years now. Like, I wrote this thing last weekend about how the software is my favorite part of Pixel, not the hardware, and my feelings about Tensor. And like one of my notes was like, okay, but like setting aside how I feel like, Tensor problems are maybe a little overblown by enthusiasts, video recording is a problem. They need to meet the modern standard. It is weird that they can't do, 4K 60 at 10-bit HDR even. Like they gotta catch up here.
Yeah. I guess it all ties back into the fact that Apple are trying to do this cohesive thing and market to the kind of people that Pixel just can't right now, and Samsung to a lesser extent can't. And that's insane to think that arguably the biggest player on Android is not able to do that in the same way, even though they're very impressive in their own right, and Samsung log is pretty good. But you are just never going to, I just cannot ever see somebody using a Samsung phone in a cage with Blackmagic camera running, recording to the Atmos like Ninja. Like I just can't see it happening. Whereas with Apple, they have geared their products up to do it.
It's reality. It's absolute reality. That ad is not, the ad captures something that's happening in professional settings all the time.
28 years later, shot on iPhone, like it's that stuff's
at times you
out
could tell.
Yeah.
At times you could
and that's fair. I mean, obviously was supposed to recreate the look of 28 days later, but like, and I agree with you, but it's still like a big, you're not hearing that about, and films have been shot on iPhone for a decade now, and you don't hear about that. Like there's no shot on Pixel movie distributed by a major studio.
Honestly, the way that Google is going, it's going to be AI movies before which you're getting a shot.
Which I don't like. I don't like that. I want them to be doing it with the hardware. Like the idea that AI is this band-aid to or plaster to cover everything is just, I don't think it works. I just do not think. I think for some things, and I think that ProRes Zoom is a very good example of that. I think ProRes Zoom at times can be fantastic, and I was worried about it and skeptical, and hey, the amount of squirrel pictures I've taken while taking my dog for a walk is insane, and I probably should be, I'll probably be on a register for taking pictures of squirrels, but I feel like it all comes back to the fact that, and then tying it back into the air as well, is just the fact that Apple has understood where they're going to place their product. Everyone else is kind of like less inclined to do that research. Apple, even if this ends up being a one generation device for Apple, they'll take the information and be like, okay, we can do a foldable for XYZ for this. Like they will back it with data, whereas everyone else has kind of got to throw things at the wall and see what happens. And that's probably what the S25 Edge signifies to me, is that, and now we're probably not going to get this S26 Edge because Samsung has thrown it at the wall, and there's no sticky aspect of it. That everything they've done has been to kind of test the waters, and they're never going to learn anything from that experiment. I hope they do. I'm probably going to be proven wrong now I've said it out loud, but it just feels very much like that.
So to wrap up a few more things, actually one more small tangent on the Pixel. Night sight has been their greatest thing. The buzz they got with night sight, that genuinely Pixel 2, Pixel 3 era.
It was the standout of my Pixel 2.
Beyond absolute standout. To me, I'm waiting for what the next one is. ProRes Zoom is the closest, but I don't think it has gotten to that awareness. I don't know. Every year I keep hoping that we'll see something along those veins, but I don't know what the next thing will be.
Do you think Zoom Enhance kind of diminished a little bit of the goodwill towards ProRes Zoom? We were expecting Zoom Enhance for so long. It took a year, and it ended up being a Google Photos feature, right?
Yeah, which was so disappointing. They never said it was going to be a Google Photos feature at launch. We thought it was all built into the camera. Yeah. Very disappointing. Yeah. I guess just to one last thing about me getting a new iPhone after 4 years. The button, the name forgets me now.
Action button?
Action button, yes.
Action button.
How have we been using that? I've used it to launch Google Lens.
Flashlight.
Mine launches
Flashlight.
Gemini Live.
Yeah,
You guys
good.
both have more unique takes on mine. Mine is literally just I always want a hardware shortcut for a flashlight because it's such a
that's
useful
pretty
little feature. And like my Pixel 10 is set up the same way where I have I think it's called Flash Dim. I can't remember that. I believe it's called Flash Dim, but it allows you to use the accessibility feature to to click both volume buttons at the same time, and that turns the flashlight on. But that's my go-to thing. I mean, Abner, you've already brought up your concerns with camera control. I remember when I reviewed the iPhone 16 Pro Max, I found that like much how the action button was too limiting, the camera control was too much, and I keep waiting for them to fix either of those problems where the action button doesn't do enough and the camera control does way too much. And we're now 2 generations and 1 generation respectively into them, and they have not fixed this. They have not solved the problem. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but
yeah, the rumor is that because the camera control is such an expensive component, they're going to lessen the functionality and to keep it, but you're still going to use it to be able to launch the app and probably as a shutter, but maybe they remove the swipey stuff or whatever.
Yeah,
make it more
I think
blunt.
that'd be fine. Yeah.
So I guess to tie it back to Android, of those 2 things, of action button, of camera control, which comes to, let's say, the Pixel for the sake of this podcast. And the thing about customizable buttons, double tap on the Pixel is absolute trash. It never bloody works. It's annoying.
I feel like a physical button to achieve that would be the best way to do it. I think I have no qualms with an action button. I think we had a shutter on Xperia phones for a while, right? Xperia have done it for pretty much since their inception. I don't know. I guess the clue is in the name a little bit with Pixel. Did they potentially add a shutter button for it being a camera focused device technically?
That would be my guess.
From its inception?
Yeah. I think in general shortcut buttons are what we're going to see more. You know, we've seen OnePlus implement them. We've seen Motorola implement them. But you know, especially with AI, but I think Google already has like its AI thing figured out with the home or with the power button. I think I could see them adding a shutter button well before they added another key that is there to do things, you know, like whatever you want it to be. I would see a shutter button first, but I also could see them not adding any additional buttons for generations to come and just keeping it with what they have right now.
I do like that everything is on one side. That kind of annoys me about the iPhone.
Yeah,
definitely. But I mean, to kind of tie it again once more to the S25 Edge and lack of S26 Edge, I guess we don't expect Google to do any thin phones because we expect it to be the same design or a very, very similar design next year. So anybody out there wishing for a thinner Pixel 10, Pixel 11, is it? Pixel 11. I'm sorry to tell you that probably isn't going to happen. So unless something happens drastically in the next 12 months, expect more of the same, and maybe we'll get to learn some more with something leaks and whatnot in the next few months. But yeah, that's the end of the S26 Edge, I guess. One and done, which sometimes is always the best way to go. I want to say thanks, guys, for joining me. It's been a lovely chat talking about random bits and pieces, Android, iOS, Pixel, you name it. We've covered it all today. Thanks again, guys, and we'll hopefully speak to you in the next one.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Pixelated, a 9to5 Google podcast. If you enjoyed the show, we ask that you rate and review it on the podcast platform of your choice and help spread the word by sharing the show with friends or on social media.